Welcome to Chaotic Harmony. My name is John.
This is Crystal.
I'm Mark.
I'm Zoe.
We talk about the joys and the challenges of teaching music in the elementary school classroom. We share inspiration, we share struggles, we brainstorm solutions. We would love to have you join us. And we're here in my living room coming at you with some Orff awesomeness this week. We've been telling the story of Chula Vista Elementary School District and how we're all revitalizing the music programs within that school district. Mm-hmm. And today we wanted to focus on our introduction to the Orff Schulwerk. And how it has revolutionized our district our teaching. Well, we're going to talk about that, John. But we kind of covered it a little bit in past episodes. We have. Okay, so since you asked, what is Orff?
Orff Schulwerk.
John?
Orff is according to Webster, it's not a method, it's a process, really. Mm-hmm. Essentially formed by Carl Orff and other people amongst his community, like how to express music through, or how to teach music through movement and folk music, and you guys
simple instruments.
Yeah,
speech.
Yeah, it's naturalistic learning of music, essentially, mm-hmm. but through dance, through music, through all of the the rudimentary approaches.
Right. Yeah. Well, I love it because it takes the idea that children are inherently musical, and it harnesses that. Right. So, anybody that's had a little toddler skipping through their house, singing songs, singing themselves to sleep, it's kids come packaged as musical critters.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have an 8-month-old at home, and I know that Gemma, she responds more to music, mm-hmm. singing to her than she does me talking to her. I get her smile if I talk to her, but if I sing to her, she engages, she bops her head, she's, she's interested, and she just has that curiosity of what's happening.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I'm into this.
I think that's something I missed on. The key part is exploration, I feel like. That's a really big part. There are other methods of teaching music that are much more systematic, but this is much more of a exploration, understanding music through interacting with it, as opposed to this is an eighth note, this is a quarter note.
Yeah,
boys and girls, congratulations, you get your award.
That's right. Yeah,
but at the same time, it is elemental, and so you do have those very strong building blocks, rhythmic building blocks and tonal building blocks that I think set students up for success.
Definitely, and all of us teach our kids how to read music in our music programs. But the Orff approach is basically you should learn how to speak well before you learn how to write or read. Yeah. And so we teach our kids how to make something beautiful without necessarily learning what the notes look like until later. Right. And I think it's great.
One of the things that's been mentioned before is that as we're learning English, we don't learn grammar before we learn a vocabulary. A similar situation should happen in music. We don't need to learn the theory behind it. We focus a lot on theory, not Orff, but a lot of people focus a lot on theory. We should learn music first off by just interacting with it, and then the grammar can come later on.
Some of us still don't know proper grammar.
What? It's okay. It's okay. It's not about perfection. So a lot of us hadn't heard much about Orff Schulwerk before joining the district 3 years ago. But I distinctly remember the day we were in our Friday professional development, and Michael Gray and Andrea Levitt got up and they gave an introduction to Orff Schulwerk. Yep. I know that was the first time I'd ever had anybody lay it out for me as clearly and concisely as they did, and just say, hey, this is what this is. We've both been through Orff level training. You should look at the San Diego chapter. And I was just wondering what you guys remembered of that day.
I remembered that I felt inadequate.
Oh, really?
That was the beginning of my second year, and I was already, I had a better sense of what I was teaching. But my gosh, Michael and Andrea were just, they knew their stuff, and also Orff approach definitely spoke to me, and for that very reason, it's oh, poop. I don't know much.
There's a first for everything. Now we have said the word poop.
Not twice. I know for me, it took me a little bit of time to really embrace it, because I don't know if we've talked about on the podcast yet, but this idea of conservatory kind of method of teaching, and I was so rooted in that. And I was just like, well, students have to know how, right. That was my background, was band. And that was my background of like, well, if you don't know how to read music and play it on your instrument, like, you're not a musician. And so it was a lot of learning on my part and just really kind of re-identifying what a musician is and what it means to be musical. And so I remember that PD, and I sat there and I'm like, well, this is fun and cool, but like, it's not, it's not what I'm going to be doing in my program. Serious. Right. And like, I had these dreams and aspirations of having this like state winning, award winning band and all these other things. And like, just
smoking jackets and turtlenecks.
Well, obviously, absolutely be rubbing shoulders with the big wigs. But it's really introduced me just to this concept of play, and that play, if directed in the right direction, is beautiful, and learning. And Orff is very sneaky. Like, through all the trainings we've done, I'm able to take a song, and the kids don't realize that they're learning the song by the way I'm teaching it, where it's like, listen for the last word. Yep. Now listen for the word that repeats the most.
It's a game.
How many times does it repeat? Can you sing that part this time? And so by the time the kids attempt the song that I'm trying to teach them for the first time as a whole song, they've heard it a dozen times already. But they don't realize that. They're focused and they're engaged in that very quick activity that's, well, I'm listening for the last word. What is it? Oh, it's this. So it's a fun way.
Yeah. And they can also identify the form clearly and tell you which words rhyme and where the phrases end. Yeah.
But they don't need to know its form. They don't need to know the words that we associate later on as adults. It's it's a game. It's fun.
It's a game. Exactly.
Spiel.
Yeah, what I appreciate about Orff now is how there are so many points of entry. So like, you don't have to be like, I'm thinking of it from like a teacher's perspective. You don't have to have all of your level trainings to be able to teach using the Orff process. Like I remember going to that like Andrea and Michael's presentation and thinking like, oh, that was really fun. That was like, I had such a good time. Like, yeah, maybe I'll go to this workshop. And then getting to the workshop, I was like, oh, I don't know. This is like, I don't know if I'm ready for this. And
it's kind of cultish at the beginning.
Yeah,
because they all know the same songs.
Oh,
it's like,
nobody's wearing shoes.
I know.
There's like hummus on the table.
We were taught by
well, not even like level training, but just going
Before
to a first Orff workshop.
Yeah, like a Saturday.
I don't know any of these songs. Ding dong ding. What?
Right.
I don't like. Why are you all just going to instruments? What's happening? It was terrifying.
Yeah,
getting the seances later.
But then
we're fully initiated.
I feel like that kind of like I don't know, like willingness, like different levels of willingness to participate is also built into the process. So like when you're teaching, you might have kids that really want to be on the instrument. And so, like, yes, you go. Maybe they just want to move. Okay, then you just move. Maybe
Student choice.
Exactly, and that is beautiful.
It is.
It's beautiful and scary too. Like, depending on the educator. Like for me, like I love Orff, and I came similar to Marc. A systematic approach is like a fine way to approach it, but with such open-endedness, it is very scary. And even as someone who's been teaching Orff for now 2+ years, it still is scary, but it's a good kind of scary. I mean, and like you're joining in with the chaos, like chaotic harmony. That's kind of where this
that's
whole.
Why we named it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really cool. I just found my my notes from that PD as I was cleaning my classroom out last month.
Nice.
And I was reminded all over again how I just sat there and felt like I could not write fast enough. And Andrea's notes are always incredible. Like, she is nothing but thorough whenever she presents. And so they gave us a very thick packet of information.
Both of them are very thorough.
Yes, both of them were very, very systematic and thorough. But I just remember writing so much and so many of the little nuanced things that they were saying. And I loved how they said too that a successful lesson, you just know from beginning to end. You shouldn't have to refer to anything. You shouldn't have to pick anything up and read it. And the beautiful thing about the Orff process is it lays it out so clearly that you don't have to. Yeah.
It's not a method, it's a process. I think that's a big differentiation. Method is much more like A goes to B, B goes to C, as opposed to this process where here's the idea. You make it as it goes, and you do learn music along the way.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with method teaching. And like, I know my brief knowledge of Kodály is it's very much that way, is A to B, B to C, and so on and so forth. But it's a different way to teach. And for those people like me who is just squirrel, well, what if we tried this? Well, what if we did this? Like, do you have an idea? And so it's like, it's super student centered. Like you had said earlier, Crystal, and just, it's student driven. And I think that's the beautiful thing, especially with my population of students who they've never had an opportunity for someone to be like, well, what do you think? Let's do that. Instead of someone telling like, well, this is what we're doing. And so, and that's not a bash on anyone or any other teacher, but it's giving them the reins of the activity and just stepping back. And it's a terrifying thing. Yeah. But it's also a beautiful thing.
It is. Well, it's the difference between do these steps and imitate to what's already inside of you. Can you bring it out? And I was in second grade a couple of months ago and had this amazing moment where I realized that they were all improvising absolutely fearlessly. And it was incredible. Yeah, awesome. We had the instrument set to C pentatonic, and I just told them there are no wrong notes. If you play the rhythm that we have just practiced, or if you come up with your own, you will be successful. Try to land on these couple of notes, but if you don't, it's not the end of the world. Right. And we're just going to go around the circle. And they loved it. And it was, we're getting to this place where ideas flow freely, where everybody tries, where they have a strong enough internal sense of beat that they can try those things. So the Orff process has opened up a lot for me, definitely. And I remember too going to that first San Diego Orff chapter meeting, because Michael and Andrea told us, you need to check out the Orff chapter. Right. It's only like $60 for a membership for the year. It was something insanely low, and you get 4 workshops on a Saturday, and it's the best training you can possibly invest in for yourself as a music teacher. And I was like, all right, sold, I'll go. And we all showed up, and we all kind of clung to each other that day.
I did.
What's happening? Yeah. But it was amazing. And I remember watching Andrea and Michael and thinking, I like this, but I don't know how to take the chairs out of my classroom. Like they're saying, I don't know how to allow the kids to play these instruments without it going into complete chaos. The first presenter that we were all introduced to when we went to that chapter meeting was Tim Wiegand, and we talked about him a couple weeks ago, but how he laid out his classroom management strategy for his Orff classroom. Yes. And after leaving that workshop that day, I was like, okay, I can try it. I can give this a try, and I might actually be successful. And by golly, it worked.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I missed that one.
Oh, did you get it?
I can't wait for him to come back.
So bring him back.
Yes.
So that summer, we all took level 1 together. Yep. And Lauren was very strategic about what she decided to do with level 1. She intentionally had it held at the district office. So in the summertime, all 30 relatively new music teachers to Chula Vista Elementary and our Orff instruments were in the conference room right next door to all the directors for the district. And they popped in to see what was going on. There's recorder and dancing and music from the xylophones pouring into the hallways. And that was such an interesting experience. Yeah. We had lunch together outside under the big trees. Right. At the district office. What do you guys remember that time?
I think for me, that's where our community grew. And that's where our community... Definitely. Just like we made a stake in the ground, like we're going to do this together and we're going to have fun and we're going to like each other, whether you like it or not, and I think it's from that training where we've learned to trust each other, where we've learned to like allow other people to take the lead, to step back and just to observe. And I think that it was super crucial and just brilliant on Lauren's part to have it for so many of us early on in our careers, where it's like, well, this is just how we teach. This is what we do. And so as we continue to grow as educators and as teachers, like that's our foundation, and it's a super solid foundation, and it's a very collaborative one. And it was so much fun. And I think without that training, we wouldn't be nearly as close as we all are now. Sure. And our classrooms would look completely different.
Right. Yeah.
2 things on that. Like first off, like you're saying, we gain trust. You kind of have to trust. When I still remember my second year of Orff, I had Santos or Manuel Soto. He was we were doing this activity with movement, because remember, music is not just singing or playing instruments, but it's also movement. It's also expressing yourself through movement.
Right.
And I remember we decided, how can we do a creative pose with our bodies? And he decides to go on his back and he lifts his legs up. He places his legs on my hips. You gotta learn to trust if you're doing that.
Yep.
You get really fun intimacy in that way. But in the same sense, the strategy of having it next to, in the district office, it just showcased that, music education is not just for kids. It's not just for little ones to learn basic stuff. We, as educators, we know a lot of advanced theory, but yet we were so pulled in by it.
Yeah.
And then you have these administrators walking in and out who have know nothing, but they're adults, and they see the fun that as adults that we're having. If it can work for us, disenchanted adults who have been through life, if that can, brighten our day, what can that do for little kids?
Yeah, that was kind of similar to my experience. Like I thought, like, wow, like I feel so much more creative and like musical than I had in years, and like having that to kind of like I don't know what the word is. Yes, springboard, but also like hold that at the same time as like, oh, like I'm a professional in this is like my, this is my employer. I'm in front of like the superintendent, he's dropping by and he's amazing. And I'm like reconciling, that's the word I was trying to think of.
There we go.
Reconciling those two aspects of myself, like, oh, like I feel like a kid. Oh, but I'm an adult and I'm working. It's like, wait, this is the job. This is what I do. And it was like really exciting. And I think, like what better way to like inspire and combat like burnout than to have that, like to tap into that.
Yes, absolutely. I remember Michael saying in that PD that we would do a lot of bonding as a cohort.
Yeah.
In level 1.
And that happened.
It was very prophetic.
I will remember this forever, but unfortunately during our Orff level training, one of our colleagues had lost a relative. And one of the activities that our instructor, I believe it was David, we got tennis balls and we did a movement activity, and it was to the song Spiegel am Spiegel by Arvo Part. I probably just butchered that name, but it's this beautiful song that's piano and cello, and we just did this activity, and it was do movement, and then once you feel you're ready, join someone else in their tennis ball, and then move together, and then join other people. And then at the end we had these, I think we finished with 2 groups of just people coming together, and no one said anything, no one did anything, but there were tears. And it was such a powerful moment where all we were like, if you take a step back and look at it, we were just moving with tennis balls. That's all we were doing. But being in that moment and being with that song in particular, and just doing it in a response to what, like, real life. Like, it shows the connectedness that music has to what we can do, and the powerful, like, what music is able to do and what movement is able to do, and really just bring you together. And it was an activity that I loved, and I use that song every year in my classroom, and we do a movement activity to it.
To tag on to that, like what you said was very true. Orff is just, it's no longer about learning how music works, but what is music, and as I like to say, doing music. Similarly, this past year, a coworker of ours at my school site passed away, and that was a really difficult.
It's a 6th grade teacher.
6th grade teacher, exactly. And that was really difficult for our entire school. I think I mentioned this in the earlier podcast, but those who missed out, just pretty much, he was the spirit of our school. And it was difficult for these, especially for his students, to really process what is death and how am I supposed to emote. And like we had on-site psychologists. I don't know much, if at all, any kids of his class went to talk to them, because like, how do you talk about death? It's tough for a 6th grader. And so I decided to for choir do a song dedicated to him, And similarly to the activity that Mark just mentioned, it's we use these light up orbs essentially. And I told the students, this here is, just imagine this is a memory you have in Mr. Season, be it like positive, joyful, a longing, whatever it is. And we did a similar situation. Again, they chose to do whatever they wanted, and they eventually ended up connecting together, and just, it was a sense of release. It was difficult for the kids and also for the audience to watch, but it was a good difficulty, and that just showed me to realign, why am I teaching music? Is it for perfection? Is it for hitting those right notes, or is it for expression? And Orff definitely allowed myself to go towards the latter. It's expression, it's a release, and that's one thing I find beautiful about Orff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. All of us teach in populations where we have kids who come from backgrounds where they have trauma. That's something that we talk about a lot as a district. And I remember David, somebody asked him, what do you do with a kid who is going through, tragedy of whatever type, really, before we did that tennis ball activity. And he said, sometimes they just can't do anything. Then you just pat the floor and you say, you sit next to me. And I think about that a lot. And I've used that a few times. Like, hey, buddy, you can sit next to me today. It's okay. Yeah. And I think that's, and there's space for that. And I think that the Orff approach just builds a lot of trust. You like you said, you have to trust somebody in order to touch them and in order to make music with them, and to feel safe moving with them and creating. And that's something that I'm very grateful for. Getting rid of the chairs in my room and making room for movement and human connection has been such a game changer. Yeah. And I'm so thankful for it. It's revolutionized my teaching.
Yeah.
Let's go into kind of the first year coming off that emotional high of level 1 and actually making it happen in your music room. Yeah. You got any lessons that you want to share that came out of that first year? It could be something that crashed and burned or something that went well.
That was a tough year for me.
Was it?
Because again, it was my reconciliation with this juxtaposition of, wait, I've taught things this way, and yet this thing was also really cool. How am I supposed to work things out? And I tried to find a middle ground. I did a lot of rounds, did a lot of that. But as far as the movement, but I'm used to this, being in chairs, I'm used to X, Y, and Z. How am I supposed to move past this? The first year was rough. And I remember we had a couple of get-togethers like every week or so that just decompressing the things we learned. And I remember I just sat there, like, I don't know how to put this in my class. I don't. I was just so frustrated. But I remember my first year though, one thing I wanted is I wanted to at least utilize something. And the rounds was something that was very helpful, because later on I was able to use that to add into movement. And again, it was no longer, at that point at least, we can focus on music, not for the sake of learning the notation, but music for the sake of learning music together. I think that's Orff really is about togetherness. And even if it's just rounds, even if you're not touching anyone, even if you're not doing anything, we're at least together.
Yeah.
So say we all.
I used a lot of body percussion.
Okay.
I had kind of explored clapping a little bit before levels training, but then coming out of it, body percussion was something that I used a lot, because it was new to the kids, it was new to me, and then there were multiple activities that I just kind of made a staple in what I do. And so one of the activities was sevens. And so you count to 7, you use body percussion, you change it up, you turn it into a round. And goodness gracious, I use that in all sorts of different ways. Like I used it with instruments. I used it in my band program with notes. And so just, I took that concept of counting to 7, and just kind of ran with it. And there were a couple others, that I used, the Omochio. It's a clapping game. And just using just the concept of games to teach.
Right.
I think that was fairly revolutionary to me. And it's okay to use a game to teach, and I know growing up, I would hear like, well, all you do is play. Well, as a music teacher now, like, that's better at what I do, you know? Like, I better play and, like, I better engage these kids. Because if a kid's playing a game, they're engaged.
Right.
They don't want you to talk to them or talk at them. They want to be a part of something. And so whether you're singing Charlie Over the Ocean and having that happen, or you're, you know, playing barred instruments and working on a classical piece, the kids want to be a part of a game.
Right.
And so I think that was a huge takeaway from level 1 for me.
There's that Carl Orff quote that I love. I had it on my wall for a while. That's from the beginning of time, children don't want to study. They would much rather play. And if we have their best interests in mind, we'll let them. And we'll find that at the end of the day, the best learning is child's play. It's something like that.
Props to you for remembering that much. I love
4 lines right there.
It's great, yeah. But it's great. It's beautiful, and I try to keep that in mind. It's just, they're brilliant.
They really are
Our
brilliant.
kids are brilliant.
I'm like currently struggling to remember back 2 years. I'm like definitely still trying to.
We've come a long way, baby.
Yeah.
I remember doing omochio and ginger beer too, and we did as a fundraiser. We sold ginger beer and mochi.
Nice. That is great.
Yeah.
I need to do that.
That was fun.
I will say though that like the process just goes so deep into like students learning. Like I in the last week of school, I know this isn't the first year. Now I'm talking about the second year. This
Totally
is just
fine.
Okay, fine.
Totally fine.
So I like recycled a lesson that I had prepared with 3rd graders for informants. It was Rob Amchin's Loose Tooth with a 2nd grade class because they just had all this energy, and I was like, okay, we're gonna put away the recorders, we're gonna do something else. And so we do Loose Tooth, and this one student, she's like, oh, I already know it. I'm like, how do you know it? She's like, my brother taught me all of it. And sure enough, she knew all the body percussion. She knew the whole poem by heart.
They found it on YouTube?
No, he just taught her everything.
taught her before.
And I was like,
that's
great.
cool.
okay, you can
That's
just
amazing.
take over my job now.
That's awesome.
That's
I
so
love
cool.
that.
That's so good.
It's really good.
Like, that's amazing.
I know.
You know?
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I was like,
Because it's a
"What?"
game. Well, I got to go to an Orff mini conference by the Northern California Orff chapter back in just a couple months ago, and they brought in instructors from Iceland and Norway and Sweden, and it was phenomenal. And one of our Nordic instructors taught us a game that apparently every 6-year-old in Norway knows. And it's about the weather, and it's a clapping game, and it's a song, and he turned it into a round, and it gets pretty complicated. And I ordered these little bird whistles that you put water in and you blow in, and it sounds like a bird tweeting.
Fun.
And I ordered 100 of them, and I said, and we had contests in every single class from 2nd to 6th grade, and that game swept the playground like wildfire. We've had a lot of rain lately, and all of our schools are like indoor outdoor schools. Like there's nowhere to play if it rains. So
Right.
our kids been stuck inside a lot. And I just found out like today, because I didn't see this happen in real life, but all the kids were crammed into the cafeteria to eat, and somebody started the game, and my principal said the
Yes.
entire cafeteria was doing this.
Yeah.
Like,
That's so cool.
isn't that so cool?
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
I know.
that's
I was like,
amazing.
yes. And I totally ran out of bird whistles in like 2 weeks.
Wait,
Yeah.
so how did they earn a bird whistle?
So they had to do the whole song in a round in Norwegian. So I've just got them up with no mistakes. So got them up, put them in 2 teams, and just started sit down, sit down, sit down. You know, like if they messed up.
You know, and going back to the rounds, like there is something magical about rounds because like I had my little choir this year, and they're mostly taller than me. I don't know why I call them little, but just term of endearment. So I, you know, in my mind, I was like, we ended up singing in unison for almost all of our performances because I thought, oh, it's just like falling apart, like but they loved singing in the groups and like leading it. But then every time we would try it, it would like do funky things, and then you know our final performance, I was like, okay, let's sing White Sand and Gray Sand as a round, and I just like spur of the moment, I was like, we're gonna do this. Here's your group. Here's your group. They did not sing it how I thought it went, but they just harmonized.
That's cool.
They started when they're, you know, the second part comes in, they started on a harmonized note. I was like,
Interesting.
that was way more beautiful than what we had planned.
Really cool.
It was so pretty.
I love rounds. It tricks them into singing in harmony.
It does.
It's really
and
cool.
So pretty.
Yeah.
One of the ways that I introduce them is I'll teach the whole class the song, and then I ask them, like, all right, your turn to sing it. I'm not going to sing it. So then they start singing it, and then I turn my back to them and kind of walk around, and I sing it quietly to myself. And it's gotten to a point now where as soon as my students see me turn my back,
They know it's up.
as soon as I turn my back to face them, their hands are like, you turn it into a round, you did a round. Like, they're so excited about rounds. I'm like, yeah, now this time I'll sing it to you so you can kind of hear it more. And so just introducing that way, but they're so excited and they want to do it. And I had first graders in a 4-part round to... That's going to bug me. I'll think about it. I'll look for it. But I had them singing in 4 parts, and I had them facing each other and stuff, but they were so excited to do it and to sing it. And so their teacher was walking by and was like, come in and watch. And so she did. She was just blown away by it. And it was the coolest thing.
That is really cool.
Now I'm going to look for that song.
Yep, you should.
I'm going to.
Well, I also wanted to touch base with you guys too about how the Orff training in Chula Vista Elementary School District has revitalized the San Diego Orff chapter. A lot of people have commented on it. They were struggling. Our chapter, their numbers were dwindling because there hadn't been music teachers down here in San Diego in such a long time. There were the people who had hung on through the recession and through all the budget cuts, and were trying to make a go of it, but they were kind of aging out as people retired and new people hadn't come in so long. And then levels happened. And it's just been this infusion of new excitement and new people. It's been cool.
Oh, poor bird.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's what it was.
You got it.
And they came in the next week singing it. Like, I didn't have to do it.
Oh, I love it.
All right,
Didn't we
Marcel.
sing that actually as one
We
of our...
did.
We did.
did.
And I knew we did. I
You just couldn't remember it.
Bird. Oh.
What bird?
So we're all about the Orff around here, man.
Well, I think a big part of that switch was I still remember, as Mark mentioned earlier, like I still remember my first time going to one of the Orff chapters, and it felt cultish.
Yeah.
But not just cultish. It was like cultish led by a demographic that was older than me, and I felt like it didn't apply to me. And I don't know if that was my own personal bias or if that was just that speaker at the time. I don't remember, to be quite honest.
Wasn't just you, bro.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. No, I was intimidated too. I was like,
But I think I think it was the antiquity. I felt like the Orff. The cultish aspect, as we're gonna coin it from here on, was one thing. But I think really it was the antiquity. It's like this isn't what I'm looking for.
Like the songs are older.
The songs were older. I remember one person was kind of dressed up as like a. Yeah. Anyways, it was just gonna move on for that one. But yeah, it was just felt like okay, this is catered towards what they did before. How can I place my own spin on it? But I never understood how I could put my own spin on it. And then finally, when I did the levels, like no, this is like that was that speaker doing her style.
Yeah.
And you still had fun doing it, but it wasn't for you. And being part of the Orff levels allowed me to this isn't just that what I saw. It is you, and now it's your turn to spin your own creativity and how to incorporate that amongst your own classroom.
Yeah, definitely. And that leads very nicely into after level 2, I think we all felt very empowered to start experimenting and making our own materials instead. Level 1 was very much, here's a bunch of activities, give them a shot. And that's what we needed our first year. But level 2 is more like, here's all the theory. Now, go experiment with it. And here's how you get your kids to play in all the different modes.
Very much so.
Yeah. So, Mark, you had a story about that.
Yeah. So coming out of level 2, I felt more confident using the yellow books. The oh goodness, what are they called?
The volumes.
Music for
Thank
children.
you. The volumes.
Yeah.
Whew.
The Bible.
Yeah. So I felt a lot more confident using the volumes. So I started using the volumes more in my classroom. Well, later on, like probably second semester of the year, so probably January, February, we had our annual book sale or book fair.
Yeah, Scholastic.
So Scholastic and the PTA, they ran it, or PTO at our school, whatever. So
Small
they ran
differences.
it. It
I
was
got
next
you.
door to my classroom. So I walked in and I looked at some of the books and I looked at the picture books and I found this one about a porcupine wanting a hug. And so I'm like, you know what? I can Orffify this. And so I bought it and I took it back to my classroom. I'm like, all right, well, how can, like, what can we sing about? And so I came up with this little melody, a little song. Like, okay, well, how can I have a skeleton for xylophones and all these things? So I started adding these different pieces onto it. And then when I presented to my class, they loved it. They had so much fun with it. They loved the book. They thought it was funny. And then they loved the song. They loved playing to it. They loved adding to it. And so it was just taking all of these things that I've learned on how to kind of put them together and actually putting them together to have a unique piece that's unique to my students and unique to me in my program, which I thought was a really cool skill to practice and to start moving forward with doing that.
Yeah,
definitely. I one thing I wonder, like, if I'm just to be a more PSA approach, like I see a lot of teachers they really love Orff Level 1. Mm-hmm. It's their way of getting their feet wet. They're the way of just interacting with the Orff process. But I see a lot of teachers getting stuck on, I want to take some stuff from this and place it in my own bag, as opposed to, hey, let's try to be transformed by Orff. Because Orff Level 2, it's tough. And it's much more of like, okay, now I want you to try to make your own stuff. And if you are not, it really takes a mindset of being allowed to be molded and being allowed to understand it's now your turn to create, because that's all. If you can't create your own lessons based on Orff, I feel like there's going to be a pushback from the students also unwilling to create with you. Right. So it's going to sound negative, but if you're going to get into Orff, I really do encourage you to drink the Kool-Aid.
Yes, definitely.
Join the cult.
Join the cult. Let it happen.
Let it happen. Yeah.
Also, I mean, and I think there are a lot of resources out there for you to get from point A to point B, like we were saying, like where we were like, what's going on, to imitating, to now creating, like on YouTube. We've said his name so many times, but Rob Amshin, is he a doctor?
I think so. It's Dr. Rob.
Dr. Rob.
He's not. He is now.
If you're a member of the National Orff Organization, AOSA, there's so many videos online, and like I really go to those a lot, where I'm just like, learning from those who have done it well.
So. Definitely.
There are so many good resources on that website. Seriously.
So if you're not ready to just start...
It's worth the national membership for the video resource alone.
Right.
Yeah. The membership's what, $80, $60, $100?
I don't know. I did 3 years at a time, so I don't remember what it was. But it's worth it.
Whatever it was. Yeah. It was... Like, for what you get, for what you pay for, is just
you get a wealth of response and wealth of just knowledge.
Just resources, man. Like, days and days of lessons and how to do this. And
right. You know, John, I think you really hit the nail on the head when you talked about the mindset. It truly is a mindset. And it's going from being a consumer of things that other people have created to being a master in your own right, and being a master teacher, and saying, I'm going to now create something and put it into the world and custom tailor it to my children, and then put it out there. And I love, we've talked about trying to collect songs that fit our population better, because there's not a whole lot of Filipino Orff materials out there in the world, and we've got a lot of Filipino kiddos, and we need to get more songs and stories from Mexico in the mix, down, since we're all so close to the border. So we're working down here in Southern California, putting our own stamp on it, and I think it's a really beautiful thing. Yeah. Lay it on us, Zoe.
All right, so we'll just pass it around first. Okay. You can open it up too.
Describe it.
Sure, we've got like a little plastic case, and then there's these little smaller plastic things, and
sorry, my mom's calling me.
Hi, Mom. Answer it, see if she wants to be on the podcast.
You guys have never seen these before?
I've never seen these. What are these?
Okay, so those are like jacks, but
these Korean. Okay, so do you have like do you ball that you pick up?
I mean, this is only like half of a set, I think, but
can they taste good?
Don't know. I would play. So those I have from middle school. We would play with those. We would play with those during PE.
John, don't eat it, John.
They make a fun noise. They're lots of different colors.
Noise.
Fascinating.
Oh, I totally got something you can do with these.
Okay.
Eat it.
They do look like candy.
They do.
I've never seen them before. Okay. You want to go first?
Yeah, I think you assign a body part to a color.
Ooh.
And then you roll them out like from
Like
the
dice?
dish that they're like die. Yeah.
Okay.
And then whatever the majority of that color is, you have to either move that body part or you have to we did an activity in levels training where it's like you had to put that many body parts on the ground or on the floor. And so kind of using that, but with these instead, where we'll see we have blue, so blue could be like your shoulders, green can be your hips or your knees and whatnot, and then whatever the majority is, you can either move that or put that on the floor or not.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine too.
I like the use of I like the use of color to be a way of selection of something. I personally, maybe I would choose like, okay, guys, we got 4 options. What do you want to sing today? Oh, wait, you don't get to choose. These guys get to choose.
And the majority picks.
Now the majority picks whatever color. So maybe they can choose what each color would be for which song, and then boom, I just pull one out.
I see what you're saying.
And orange, you're gonna sing ginger beer, or boom, orange, or yellow, you get
Got
to
it.
sing whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
How do you, Crystal?
I'm seeing iconic notation. So I would get out little index cards, and I would say these are your notes. And so if we wanted to attach the different colors to a specific note on the xylophone, we could. Or I would just say like, here's a ta, there's TT. You know, yeah. Blank card would be a rest. Yeah.
You guys are amazing. I honestly thought, oh, here's a shaker in my closet. I'm gonna bring this.
And the cool thing is like individually,
They do make
each
cool
one,
noises.
because inside each individual one they have a little bit of yeah.
Yeah, there's one. They do make a really fun little thing.
Cool.
Very cool.
Awesome.
All right,
Thanks,
who has the round of the week? Round of the week.
We are seeing "Come Follow" by John Hilton.
It's appropriate you picked a song name with a composer named John.
Except I'm Jonathan. That's the proper way of spelling.
You don't know what his full name is?
I do. It's John.
You don't know that? You can spell it funny. My name's spelled with a C.
So anyways, we are doing "Come Follow" in the key of B. If you know B, do not judge us for singing incorrectly. Come follow, 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 follow me. Whither shall I follow, follow, follow? Whither shall I follow, follow thee? To the greenwood, to the greenwood, to the greenwood, greenwood tree. Come follow, 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 follow me.
Come follow, 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 follow me.
Whither shall I follow, follow, follow? Whither shall I follow, follow thee?
Whither shall I follow, follow, follow? Whither shall I follow, follow thee?
To the greenwood, to the greenwood, to the greenwood, greenwood tree.
To the greenwood, to the greenwood, to the greenwood, greenwood tree.
1 and 2 together. Come follow, 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 follow me. Whither shall I follow, follow, follow? Whither shall I follow, follow thee? To the greenwood, to the greenwood, to the greenwood, greenwood tree. Clearly, you're more advanced than I had predicted. So,
Clearly.
clearly.
It's like we're all music teachers or something.
What? Okay. So, Zoe, you, me,
Sure.
and then Crystal, Mark.
Cool.
Let's get it.
Should we
Bring it
do
on.
Duty first and then solos? Together first and then do
Yep.
rounds? 1, 2, everyone. Come follow, 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 follow me. Whither shall I follow, follow, follow? Whither shall I follow, follow thee? To the greenwood, to the greenwood, to the greenwood, greenwood tree. Come follow, 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 follow me. Whither shall I follow, follow, follow? Whither shall I follow, follow thee? To the greenwood, to the greenwood, to the greenwood, greenwood tree. To the greenwood, to the greenwood, to the greenwood, greenwood tree. Nice.
Nice.
All right. Thanks for listening, you guys. This is Chaotic Harmony. John, where can we follow you?
You can follow me at Mr. Seligman on the Twitterverse. That's at MRSELIGMAN.
You can follow me at Ms. Kumagai.
You can follow me on Twitter at Finny Vappa.
And you can follow me at Mr. Keehmer. KEEHMER.
Oh, I like that jingle.
And you can follow all of us at Greenwood Tree.
What?
I don't know.
Is that our new website now? We changed our
To the Greenwood Tree?
to the Greenwood Tree.
Yeah, follow us to the Greenwood Tree.
We've just renamed our show to the Greenwood Tree. You are listening to the Greenwood Tree.
Thanks for listening, you guys. Keep it chaotic and harmonious. The Chaotic Harmony podcast is a joint project between Crystal Pridmore, Jonathan Seligman, Zoe Kumagai, and Marc Keehmer. You can find us online at chaoticharmonyclassroom.com. You can email us at chaoticharmonyclassroom@gmail.com and let us know what you think. Give us feedback about what you would like to hear in future episodes. We're on all the socials. Find us on facebook.com/chaoticharmonyclassroom. You can find us on Twitter at @CHClassroom, Instagram at Chaotic Harmony Classroom, and you can even find our episodes on YouTube. Chaotic Harmony is the name of our channel. Special thanks to Brian Pridmore for his help with production and equipment. www.pridmoria.com.